Hey guys, welcome back. This is going to be tutorial number 7. During this tutorial we're going to be going over a cooking script. This cooking script is going to be filling that for Van Stone of RPGMakerVX.com. This particular script is going to basically you're going to have a cooking level, and this is going to be for the player, so that implies the party, so that's where we're going to store that. But the idea here is that you're going to learn a series of different recipes, and each of these recipes then will tell you about itself, what ingredients are required, and how many of that you have currently in your inventory, and then a cook and don't cook, respectively. The other addition to this is that items that you might know the recipe but you are not of the adequate level in order to do so, then that will be disabled over here on the left, and of course the cook option will not be an option. So let's go ahead and get to it. So what we're going to do is just go and create a new script section. I've already done so here, called Cooking System. You can name it whatever you'd like, but that's just what I chose to go with. Okay, so first off, we need to have a place in order to store the actor's current cooking level. But being that it's not just the actor, it's just in general the player, we're going to assume game party. Simply because it's not going to be tied to any individual person, it's just going to be the group as a whole. So we're going to start off with class game party less than game unit, and we're going to initialize. We're going to add that to the initialize method so that we can have that. So to do that, we have to first initialize game party's initialize method. So we're going to do init game party cooking script and initialize unless $at and def initialize, and then here we're going to call the old version of it, and we're going to pass it any arguments that were given to the initialize, since I don't know whether there are any, and I don't actually care what they are in that. And then here we're going to store the cooking level and probably also the cooking experience. So the cooking level, we're going to set that to 1, and the cooking experience, we're going to set that to 0. So now that we've got that, we're going to go ahead and expose the cooking level. Oops, let's do that as an attribute reader, since we don't actually, or we're never going to change it directly from outside of the script. And then for the cooking experience, we're going to put game cooking experience and the value, and then here we're going to put in cooking experience plus equals the value, which is what was passed in, and then we're going to check it for a cap in case there is. So we'll put it equal to itself, comma, and we'll just assume that value is 9,999, and we're going to set that. Okay, so now it limits it from exceeding the, what that does is prevents it from exceeding the maximum value. And then we could also put in a min off of that to force it to always be above 0, but I don't think that should be a problem, so we're not going to bother going there. And then as part of this, we also need to figure out how we're going to get our levels, our cooking levels. When is the experience, when do we have enough experience in order to advance to the next level? So we're going to go ahead and put in cooking experience list, and then this is going to be our list of experience amount that you must have in order to gain the next level. So of course the very first level is going to be 0. The second level, we'll go ahead and set that to 500. The next one we'll put as 1,000, and then 2,000. Okay, and so that there enforces that there is a maximum of 4 levels, but inside of here you could just go ahead and define more, and we'll put in the logic so that it will never go beyond that. So what we're going to do is we're going to put in here that we want to only gain a level if you exceed the value above what your current level is. So your current level is always going to be, or in this case here, we're going to start out with the value of 1. As an index to this, 0, 1, 2, 3 is how we define which one is which. So what we're going to do is we're just going to use the cooking level because it directly correlates to the next level of experience. So we're just going to say if the cooking level experience list is greater than, or I'm sorry, is less than the current cooking experience. Okay, then during that case we will gain cooking level. Okay. Now we don't actually need to make that a method. We could just put cooking level plus equals 1 and be done with it. But I don't know, it shouldn't really matter, but you can do it either way. I'm going to do it as a method simply because that allows you to expand on it with additional things that you may want it to do, like the ability to use other ingredients, and you've got an ingredient list or something, or anything along those lines, but I'm not going to bother doing that now, but later on, if you guys want to, that would be something that would be easy to do. So this is currently just going to say cooking level plus equals 1. So we said here, if the current cooking level experience to the level above what your current cooking level is less than what your current cooking experience is, then you will go ahead and gain a level. Okay. The other way we could have put that is just just reversed that, but it's basically the same thing. Okay, so that handles our gaining of levels and stuff like that. So now what we need to do is go and build our scene. How are we going to gain experience? What recipes do we currently know? Things along those lines. So let's actually cover the next part. What recipes do we know? So what we need to do is we also need to add another learned recipes. Okay, and we're just going to make that be an array. And we're just going to leave it empty to start with, since you're not going to know any recipes at the very beginning of the game. So how do we learn recipes? What we're going to do is we're going to come in here and type in learn recipe. And this is going to be a method that we'll call from outside. But let me make sure I'm spelling recipe correctly, because I wasn't. And then we need to expose what our currently learned recipes are. So we're going to add another attribute reader. Since we're not going to be changing that directly, we're going to be using our learn recipe method. Okay, so our learn recipe method is just going to be pushing a recipe number. So we'll just put in number, and we'll say we want to add that to the learned recipes, but only if the learned recipes does not include, so we put the not symbol before it, the exclamation, the current number that we're trying to add. So that should handle it. So that just says add this to the learned recipes if I don't already know it, essentially. Okay, and then we'll have a forget option here, forget recipe, and then we'll specify a number. Not that I think this should be a common thing, but maybe someone steals a recipe from you or something, and so you have to go find it again. I don't know, something along those lines. So what we'll do is we'll just say learned recipes dot delete and number, and that will remove it from your list. All right, so now we've got the ability to learn recipes. We've the ability to learn them, the ability to forget them, how many, what recipes we've got, and we can view that from the outside. We've got the ability to have a current cooking level and those things. Pick the time here. Okay, and yeah, so we're coming along pretty good. What we're going to do now is we're going to define what recipes we have, and well, you know what? Actually, let's get to building our scene. So let's actually take another look at what our scene is supposed to look like. According to his specifications and his concept that he drew up here, we should have 3 windows. We should have a general window across the top indicating the current cooking level and what you're doing, the cooking scene. And then you'll have a list of recipes and then the details of that recipe and whether or not you want to cook or don't cook. So we need to define 3 windows in order to handle those 3 things. So let's go ahead and define those windows. The first window of which we're going to define is here, just the top one, the cooking window. It doesn't actually have any details in it other than the current actor level for cooking. And that's it. So we'll just call this one the cooking title, and this is we're going to make that less than window base. Now window base is just, of course, it's a base for your windows inside of RPG Maker VX as well as XP. The difference between window base and window selectable is that window base does not have any functionality for highlighting any current item that you've got selected or any of that. So being that this window doesn't need to have that information, there's no reason to create it as that type. So we're just going to stick with just the window base on this one. Okay, so let's initialize that. We're not going to bother passing it any methods, and on this we're going to define its size. So what we're going to do is we're going to call the super method, which calls the initialize method within window base. And if we go look at window base, it needs, excuse me, x, y, width, and height. So we need to specify that inside of our script. Since we didn't ask it for anything, we have to just automatically supply those. So we're going to put it in the upper left, and we're going to fill it all the way across the screen, so 544, and then let's see, we figured that each line is 24 pixels high, and then you have to factor in the fact that there is a 16 pixel buffer on top and bottom for any of your windows. So if we take our 32 and we add the 24, we've got 56. So our window has to be a minimum size in height-wise 56. So we're just going to go ahead and go with 56. I don't think we need anything larger than that, really, unless we plan on using a far larger font for the cooking, in which case we can set this to, say, 64. You know, let's just go with 64. And that way there you've got a little bit more room for it. 64 is also a little bit more standard to RPG Maker XP versus VX, just because their default is 32 between lines versus VX, which is 24. So what we're going to do now is tell it to create its contents. This is a method inside of window base. Let's just look it up here so we can take a look at it. But what it does is it just creates a map, a bitmap, at the size of what your current width and height are. This is the same thing that you would do in RPG Maker VX using the equals bitmap.new width minus 32 height minus 32. It's the exact same thing as that, but it's been extrapolated away so it's easier to call, so that you don't have to type that out every time, and it's already figured out, so all you've got to do is just type in create contents and it's done. Okay, so now we've got the window, now we need to draw the data on it. So what we are going to do is go ahead and do the next step. We're going to type in refresh, And then we're going to go through our refresh method. Our refresh method is going to, one, it's going to display the text in the upper left-hand corner as displayed here, the word cooking. Okay, so the word cooking, so we're going to say self.contents.drawText, and we're going to say in the upper left-hand corner, because we don't need to specify anything else, we'll go ahead and give it the full length of area that it needs to draw. We don't have to give it that much, but it should be more than enough. And then what we're going to do is we're going to do window line height plus 8. Now, the reason we did window line height plus 8 was window line height, or WLH, if we go back and look at window base here, is 24 by default. So being that that is 24 by default, remember how he's saying is that each line is only 24, but we gave it an additional 8 pixels, so that's why we're going to be tagging that onto there. Okay, and then now we put our text, cooking. Okay, and then we're just going to go ahead and close that. And before we do that though, let's set our font size. So we're going to say font.size equals, but before we do that, we need to store what the current font size is in another variable. So we're going to store that in .fsize. Okay, and then we're going to set it equal to say 24. And then we're going to draw that, and then what we're going to do is set it back to whatever it is by default. That way there's no question about whether or not that particular one is going to be as large as what your default is, but then your default can be restored for the actual other half of it. Okay, so the other half of that now is the player's level. So let's do self.contents.drawText. And we're actually also going to allow it to have that entire area to work with. So there is a possibility of overlapped text here, but it shouldn't be too excessive. So the way he wanted it formatted was level colon space and then the level. So let's go ahead and type that in, level colon space. And then we're going to do this fancy method here for inserting text in the middle of a string. We're going to do game party dot cooking level and close the parentheses. And now we need to orient this text to be right aligned rather than left aligned. This way it's going to be on the right side of the window rather than the left hand side, overlapping the cooking. So we're going to set that to 2, and then we're going to go ahead and close that. Okay, so that is that window. Nothing else to it. So this way, having a refresh method, we're actually going to put the create contents down there as well. So if we need to refresh it, that way it will wipe out any current data and then it'll just redraw it from scratch, meaning that we're going to get all of that fresh new data. So if we gained a level by cooking something, then we can refresh that, indicating the new level at the top of the screen. So let's go ahead and do our next window. So let me cut this one here. I'll actually come back in a moment. We'll go ahead and do part 2, and we'll go from there. Okay, thanks guys.